Okay, so what other things do I want to tell you? I want to tell you about getting your shadow fixed. Now, I talked about shadow in a previous talk just before this, and I want to talk about all the things that are in the shadow. How do you live with them? Because they're still in consciousness. So your job is to live with things you don't like, undesirable things. And those ones are the ones you already cast out. But they're still in consciousness and they could still be active in your world. So the way you do this is you have to take the emotional charge off of these things that are in your shadow closet. Because if they have an emotion, it pushes these things. What are some of the emotions that can go with the things you put in your closet? Primarily hard things and easy things. So if you're going to have a hard thing, it's something that you really don't want to do, but it's like an addictive thing to you. Easy things are things that you don't want and you have no desire for. So the hard ones you have a desire for. And the emotion that goes with these things is primarily, someone wants to say lust. So it's a sinful thing, lust. Lust is something that it's associated with the word. It's not a good thing to have a lust. Except, what if you have lust for life? Well, lust for life should be a good thing. But if you have a lust for cocaine, then, it's going to break you and break your family. So what are we going to do with the emotions of very strong desire for something that you really know is not good for you? Because the easy ones, you don't really have to worry about it because you don't have an emotional attachment to them. They're really neutral, and you don't have to try and figure out, if it's neutral, does that mean there's something hidden? Let's just assume there's nothing. And I know assume is making ass of you and me, but for the purposes of this word, let's assume. Because we want to move back to the hard ones. The hard ones that have got this emotion of lust for something that you don't want because it's bad for you or you've been told it's bad for you, this has to be addressed. And you address it by asking yourself, is it lust? In other words, is it an unnatural thing for me to be wanting cocaine? Then if it is, then you have to, we'll go into that in another talk. But if it is something that society says is not good, then it's something that the society has told you is bad, and you've had to accept that and give this thing away, but you still want it. This is what, it's a kind of a cognitive dissonance, because you want it yourself personally, but your society says you can't have it. So somebody might say, okay, how about like psychedelics, mind-expanding drugs? Society says I can't have them, but me personally, I want to expand my consciousness and I want to use this method. In this case, you're really in a hard place because there's quite often really strong legal penalties to using psychedelic substances. So what do? You've got a curiosity about these things, but you're told you cannot do them under a huge penalty. This is a very hard thing. And how do you resolve it? Primarily, you have to go underground, away from the watchful eye of society. And is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it can be a very damaging thing. For example, people that try things like opiates or the cocaine I was talking about. So it's like society is giving you a strong warning that other people in the past have got addicted to these things. And so we don't want you to do them. And that's why we put this heavy penalty on it, so you won't do it. Is that the best way to handle these things because, somebody else had a bad trip? The answer for me is I don't have an answer. So I guess it leaves it up to you to decide how you're going to deal with those things. In the interest of brevity, I will tell you, you have a lot of things in your closet, in your shadow, that society has told you you can't have. Things that are not related to drugs. And we're not talking about things like murder. We're talking about things that in this world were considered abominations, kind of a religious connotation to them. Something that God has forbidden you to do. And, the easiest one is homosexuality. So everyone knows that even today, the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, considers that to be some kind of a sin or some kind of an act that has been forbidden by the Christian Bible. So when the religion is dominant in society, the society itself uses the government to make that illegal. And in fact, in many places, it's still illegal. But this is not what I would call something justified by the population. This is something we inherited by tradition. In other words, dead people. We've got dead people who are still influencing us today because of their beliefs, their religious beliefs. So what does it mean for today? It means we have to go back and look at what the governments are doing on our behalf. And we have to decide whether we want this to continue. And the problem, of course, is that in a huge country with millions or, India or China, 1 billion people, your personal say is steamrollered by all the rest of the people. This is always going to be something that we're going to have as long as we have countries and governments. So, in an enlightened society, what would we do? We would probably, I don't know, because we don't have one. But in the meantime, at least you're educated that there are things that we consider wrong because it's been passed down by tradition. And we want to always figure out, why are we being bound by the past? Because we live in the now and we're moving into the future. And the dead people aren't even here anymore to consult with. So all we have is a huge book of laws that have been passed down through the years, and we have to obey them under penalty of different penalties. Once in a while, we're going to have to review everything that we have on our culture and our governments and our whole system of setting up the whole world based upon countries and see if it's serving us. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't serve us at all. This system that we have on planet Earth is a total disservice to the humans that live here today. So we need basically a complete revolution, a complete change, redo from start. That's the end of the talk. The next talk is how you deal with things that are hard but are not really driven by lusts. Things like getting ourselves involved with, I don't know. I don't have one right now. But maybe in the next talk. I'm Bob Frizzell.